Okay, let's start with Michael Porter's article. How did you guys like the article?
I thought learning about uh, all the advantages that he had thought of and implemented in companies was pretty interesting.
What is the takeaway from the article?
Maybe that like being able to create something unique and uh, continually changing it to keep it unique and at the top of its game is very important in building a business and a brand.
Hmm. Basically, unique positioning, right? You have to position your products in a unique way. That is very important. That's correct. That's definitely true.
And I think
But yeah,
it's really good introductory like article that like makes us know a lot of like terms related to the management.
yes, yes. It introduces a lot of important terms related to management. Is correct.
I thought it
Uh,
was interesting when it said that operational effectiveness isn't strategy.
yeah, I mean that is yeah, that's not a strategy. I mean that's like a given, like that of course you have to do, but that in itself is not a strategy, right? Yes. Operational effectiveness is something like it's obvious that you have to be effective, but that in itself does not make a strategy for your firm. So CU said a very uh very to the point, like very like she hit the bullseye with that it introduces a lot of terms for business and management. So that is exactly what I did uh, with my first couple of slides. That I touch upon the terms that we encounter in the article, like total quality management. Do we have we come across this term before? Like, have you guys come across this term before this article ever? What is total quality management? So, as the name signifies, that you have to manage the quality in totality. In totality means not just production, but every part of the supply chain, every component of the supply chain, which means your marketing, your accounting and finance, uh, everything's quality should improve and be, A grade. So, right on the first page, he mentioned so many of these terms: total quality management, benchmarking. So, most of you got benchmarking correct in Kahoot, right? So, benchmarking is just comparing yourself with the best practices of the industry. And those best practices could be anything like minimum number of defects. So, while production, there should be minimum number of defects, cycle time per unit of measure, productivity per unit of measure, cost per unit of measure, everything can be benchmarked with respect to the leader of the industry and see where you stand with respect to the leader of the industry, right? Then time based competition. Time based competition is basically it's called just in time manufacturing. That it was started by Japanese companies in 1970s, that you would start making the item, you would start production of the item only when you receive the order. So that way you cut inventory. There's less inventory to be taken care of, and thus you save space, time, rent, and all those things. So that is what is time based competition, that you want to keep your supply chain as lean as possible, right? And so basically, Japan at that time was like today's China. So its products were very popular in US, and that is why US had to put some restrictions on Japanese products like tariffs, quotas. So there was a voluntary, it's called voluntary restriction, VER. I don't remember what E stands for, but voluntary restriction that Japan itself came forward and said that we would not export more than like 1.1 million or 1.5 million cars per year to US, so that US does not put more sanctions on Japanese firms. So it was a voluntary restraint on its own products. That is how popular Japanese products were at that time in US. An article says that the problem with getting too obsessed uh, with operational effectiveness is something that is visible in Japanese firms. The Japanese firms are too obsessed with perfection, and that is why they forget how to be unique, how to position themselves uniquely. So I'll show this video. What does it mean?
Country often seen as a land of Japan, a country often seen as a land of innovation, from bullet trains to pioneering robotics.
I will now register the guest's information. Please press the button to begin.
It's little wonder the country is seen by many as being at the frontiers of modern technology.
Your check-in is now completed.
But underneath the surface lies a Japan that is also fiercely traditional, and in some places that's holding back the economy. Here's why Japan is falling behind. Japan used to be the third largest economy in the world, but last year it lost that title to Germany. For decades, the country has grappled with slow economic growth and productivity. Part of that reason is their dependence on older technology. Hideki Arami started working for his father at this hanko, or stamp shop, in 1992, and took over the business 14 years later. This is a hanko, and it's often used in Japan in place of a signature. For example, on contracts or invoices or other official documents. For centuries, the stamps have been required to prove one's identity. Even today, they're often used in everyday situations like receiving a parcel or opening a bank account.
大切なことはめんどくさい方がいいと僕は思ってるんですよ。そのデジタル社会の怖いところは、その犯罪者が世界に出ちゃうこと。
However, these types of practices can make businesses less productive. Japan's productivity is only about 2/3 of the U.S. level, about 3/4 of the level in Germany. So it's quite low and has stayed that way for many years. There's always a difficulty striking that balance between the most efficient, the most productive way of doing things, and the traditional and widely loved way of doing things. The result? A country rich in culture but resistant to change.
There's this old joke, how do you know that somebody is working for a Japanese company? Well, when you look at the name card, it still has the fax number.
Jesper Kohl, an economist who has lived in Japan since 1986, says it's more than just the technology that's weighing Japan down.
The Japanese have become so pedantic, have become such sticklers for precision that, if the hanko, if the seal touches the line where it's on, then it's invalid and you have to redo the entire form all over again. And that's ultimately what's so beautiful and so infuriating about the way Japan works, because it is so process-oriented.
In the years since the pandemic, the government has made it easier in some cases to go without hanko, perhaps a written signature or no signature at all. But still, on official documents that we sign, for example, here at the Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones Japan's office, we still use hanko quite frequently. And hanko is not the only old technology still used in Japan. In some offices, people still use the fax machine instead of emails to send important documents.
Japan, was very, very good at being an early adopter. Because, if you look at the 1970s, if you look at the early 1980s, obviously you came up with the Walkman, which completely revolutionized, right, the way mankind, experiences music, right? but sort of from the analog to the digital, that transition never really happened.
In some ways, Japan has not changed much since the 1990s. Many employees still work for one company for most of their careers. Wages across Japan have stayed more or less the same for 30 years, although they are beginning to rise this year. Many Japanese work long hours, especially in certain workplaces such as elite government ministries. Yet productivity is low.
Japan is incredibly labor intensive. Do yourself a favor and go into a Japanese Starbucks, and where in the United States there is two people, taking the order and doing the cafe latte with the extra shot, right? Here in Japan, there's at least 5 people. It's one of the simplest concepts in the world, right? Because you just take output divided by the number of input, right? And so obviously, fewer people is better.
Japan's rigid work culture still often prioritizes conformity over efficiency. But that may be about to change, spearheaded by Japan's digital minister. He wants the country to move on from obsolete technologies.
For some government procedures today, you're still required to submit application in floppy disk, yeah. So I had to declare war on floppy disk in Japan.
Younger Japanese are more willing to rewrite the rules, work reasonable hours, and take risks. They are also more willing to adopt new technologies.
So there is a big generational element. But even with the digital alternatives, it's the pedantism of the form over content. That's why Japan has great difficulty in being an early adopter or in adopting, modern technology, digital technology in a fast and speedy way.
Japan has always marched to the beat of its own drum, embracing modern technology but retaining its own culture and charms. But for Japan to lift its economy, it may need to chisel away some parts of its history to keep growing in the future.
You guys know Walkman that he said in the video? Have you ever seen a Walkman?
Yes, I actually had one.
Yeah. We are from the Walkman generation. Yeah. So can you define it for the younger generation here?
So it was like a portable little, I would say machine where you would put a CD.
Cassette.
That's the one, right? Oh, the cassette. Okay, so later on was the one with the CD. Yes, it was the cassette, and then you would hook your headphones, and it would work, and you had buttons on it.
Yes.
I forgot it. What was the one with the CD player? Yes, that was a CD.
Yes, CD player. CD player came later. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Yes.
It was the cassette that had the magnetic band, I guess, where the music was recorded on it.
Yes. So you would have like 6 to 8 songs on each side of the cassette. So you could change sides and you could listen to songs while traveling. Yes, so that was Walkman. Then the article also mentions learning curve and experience curve. Pretty simple and straightforward definition. Learning curve is basically the more you do something, the faster and better you become at it, right? So that is learning curve. While learning curve applies primarily to production of the product, experience curve applies to the whole operations, like everything that goes into, your company on your product, which is marketing, HR, accounting, everything. So ultimately, both the terms mean that the more you do the task, the better you become at it, right? The faster you are able to do at lower cost, you are able to do. Race to the bottom. Very interesting term. So race to the bottom term actually comes from politics. So what happens is that, it's very common in developing nations, especially, but it's getting common here as well. that suppose one political party, while fighting elections, would announce that we will give, if we come to power, we will give free laptop to every high school student. Okay, one political party says, or college student, because high school students may not be eligible voters, so they would not say that, right? So, say college students, we will give one free laptop, or say they will, the political party says that we will give one free laptop to every female college student. Okay, the other party says that we will give to every student, both female and males. Then the first party says that okay, we will give laptop as well as a bike, e-bike or bike, to every college student if we come to power. And then the second political party adds something to that. So what is happening is that both the political parties are basically announcing freebies which will put load on exchequer, and basically the government money, the treasury, will ultimately get emptied on useless expenses. Because what do you think? Like, is giving free laptops or bikes to college students a good expense by the government? Yes or no, and why? Okay, first question first. Is it a good announcement? See, if I'm a political leader and I say that I'll give free laptop or free bikes to college students, is it a good announcement or no? Yes or no?
I think it's
It's
no.
good for the students.
I don't think it's like the good use of the public funds. So I say no.
I would
Not a good.
say it would be a good use, but it would be also controversial because it's just benefiting one age group.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't be good for you, for the company, if you give free products to students, right?
For the company, you mean the company that is producing the bikes or the laptops?
No, for the one that's giving them away. For
Yeah,
free.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Government. It's not a good use of the government money because yeah, government is supposed to spend that money on infrastructure and more urgent needs. More urgent needs could be like healthcare, defense, infrastructure, expenses that private players cannot undertake, like constructing dams or highways
Innovation,
or
maybe.
hmm?
Invest in innovation.
Innovation, innovation and yeah, those kind of things. Yes,
Professor,
making, huh?
would it be different if it's like the politician just gives the laptop to like instead of college students like 12th graders or like high schoolers that like in a computer lab in the high school?
Yeah, so that would be basically you are donating to uh, an
Education.
educational institution, right? So that is different. That is different. That is probably a good use. Yeah, but I mean, you can like go on Google and check. Like there have been cases like in India I've seen where people have announced as crazy things as like giving away free condoms during election campaigns. You know, free food and absolutely useless, crazy stuff just to win elections, right? So they basically spend money on, distributing beer, wine, you know, and all kind of crazy things. So basically, the race to the bottom is that one person undertakes a loss-making entity or a loss-making exercise. The other competitor in competition, in rivalry, goes one step beyond that in loss-making, um, loss-making step, a loss-making decision, then the first company tries to overtake, you know, the second one, and the chain goes on till it's a race to the bottom that both will keep making losses and ultimately nobody wins. That is exactly what Michael Porter is trying to say here, right? The result is zero sum competition, static or declining prices, and pressures on costs, right? In a race of imitation and homogeneity, right? And how this example. So, what is the example in the business world about this? Is Amazon and Flipkart. So, Flipkart was an indigenous firm, Indian firm startup back in 2007 8. Just like Amazon, it was an e-commerce platform where you could buy things, order things. And just 1 or 2 years later, Amazon also entered India in, I guess, in 2009 or 10, somewhere around that. Now, Amazon is a global firm. So there was no way Flipkart could compete with it because Flipkart was just operating in India, right? And in a bid to catch or grab more and more market share, they both kept selling items at loss. Like what do we have here? Big Billion Day, uh, where there's a particular day, right? Uh, Besides Black Friday, where you would where the most of the products would be at a very cheap rate, and you could buy a lot of products at discounts. And a single day, Amazon would sell like so many $1 billion worth of products. So I think it's called Big Billion Day in India. So on that particular day, you would get products at 20% rate, 30% rate, and the same way, both Amazon and Flipkart would keep selling at loss, just in a hope that one day they will get a bigger market share, and then they can break even and move to profits. So due to the race between the two, all other competitors, there were many other firms, eBay, Mintra, there were many other firms in the market. They gradually faded away, and only Amazon and Flipkart remained. But Flipkart was not able to compete with Amazon. So I think by 2017 or 18, Flipkart was bought by Walmart, because to compete with an Amazon, you need a Walmart, right? But what Walmart did, Walmart did not change the name of Flipkart to Walmart, so that people in India keep thinking that it's an Indian firm, because people try to support their domestic companies, right? So that if somebody wants to think and I will buy from Flipkart and not Amazon because I want to support an Indian firm, then they would keep buying from Flipkart. And what happened is that it has been a race to the bottom, and none of the two have broken even till now. In more than 15 years, none of the two have reached profits. It has been a race to the bottom. Neither Amazon nor Flipkart. So, do you see the point that Michael Potter is making in the article? Right. Then I think they mention he mentions like hub and spoke system and point to point system at one of the places, and I thought of bringing it up because you anyway have to study this in Southwest case. So, are you guys familiar with this hub and spoke system and point to point system? Any supply chain major here, or anybody has taken a supply chain course? No. So, This is hub and spoke system and point-to-point system, which was basically started by, I guess, FedEx and Delta Airlines, which is also used in IT networks like computer networks. They call it Star Network, but in airlines it's called hub and spoke system. So basically, what happens is that airlines can adopt one of the two models. Either they can adopt a point-to-point system or hub and spoke system. So, like for example, say Delta Airlines has a hub at Chicago. So, if you have to go from Las Vegas to Atlanta, then say uh, you will go from H is Las Vegas and A is Atlanta. Then uh, you would go from Las Vegas to the hub, which is Chicago, and then you will go to Atlanta, right? That is hub and spoke model. But Southwest and most of the low cost airlines, they adopt point to point model. So if you have to go from Las Vegas to Atlanta, you would take a direct flight. Okay, so there are both advantages and disadvantages of both the models. What do you think could be some advantages and disadvantages of these models? So which one will have fewer routes or routes? What do you pronounce it? It is visible in the figure
Hub
as
and
well.
spoke.
Hub and spoke will have fewer routes, right?
Yes.
So to connect all the points, there would be say if there are say 7 cities, then there would be 6 routes. So if I have to go from G to somewhere, then G to I just go to hub and then I can go anywhere. H, A, B, C. So if there are 7 nodes, there would be 6 routes in or 6 routes in total, right? Back and forth. If we calculate back and forth, that is 2 cities joined either from A to B or B to A. It means the same thing. That is one route. Then there would be 6 routes in total if there are 7 nodes, right? But in point to point, there would be from D, I will have to first connect all the others A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? A, B, C, E, F, G, and then from F to all of them except D because D is already joined with F, and then E, all of them except D and F. So if there are 7 nodes, we will have 6 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 total number of routes, right? So point to point will have more routes. So what could be an advantage or disadvantage if an airline adopts one of these models? Could there be any advantage of point to point model? Most of the low cost,
For
yeah,
point to point, if you want something fast, because it's direct, shipping time would be faster.
right, correct. So if I have to go from Las Vegas to Atlanta, I don't have to first go to Chicago. I can go directly from Las Vegas to Atlanta. So it saves time, right? Saves hassle. That is definitely an advantage. Any other advantages or disadvantages?
You save a lot of fuel and costs in terms of like burning fuel when you're using point to point.
Yes, yes. You save a lot of fuel. Uh, Yeah, you save a lot of fuel in the sense that uh, because distances are shorter distances are covered, but you can also use but the number of routes are lesser in hub and spoke, and also you can use economies of scale in hub and spoke because you can gather a lot of people from multiple cities. So everybody who has to go to Atlanta will gather at, they will all assemble, Avengers assemble at Chicago, from Las Vegas, from San Francisco, from New York. All of them gather at Chicago, and then they can take a bigger flight, bigger aircraft, and all of them can go to Atlanta. That is the logic in hub and spoke. So that way you can save money there, right? Using economies of scale. So lesser fuel, lesser number of aircrafts running because lesser number of routes. So there is a flip side as well for advantageous flip side for hub and spoke, right? But that can also become a bottleneck. If something happens at the hub, if there is a bad weather at Chicago, right? Then all the flights would be affected because all of them are dependent on that one single hub, right? So that could be a problem for the hub model. They can use definitely they can use economies of scale, like all of the package sorting and accounting, all of it can be carried at the hub rather than at every node. So spokes are simpler to operate. You can always new routes can be created, but the disadvantage is that it is limited by the hub's capacity. If that hub can become a bottleneck, right? One failure at the hub, then everything gets affected. But surprisingly, um, the video that I will show you tells us that actually Southwest Airlines, which runs point-to-point model, was badly affected 2 years ago, 3 years ago actually, which I was surprised to hear because theory says that it is hub and spoke model that will get affected due to the hub.
I had a crazy idea. We were surprised that no one had done it before.
Success doesn't follow a formula.
When I look at a map, I see opportunity.
This is
You can hear it, right? Okay.
Patrick Quayle. He's a global network planning executive at United Airlines, which means he decides where the airline flies, when it flies, and what type of aircraft it flies.
I can talk about planes forever.
Quayle has more than 15 years of experience planning flight routes.
You can also see Denver, the aircraft flying west.
So he's here to explain how that process works and how an airline's route system affects travelers.
There's two main network structures. There's hub and spoke, and there's point-to-point.
United and other legacy airlines like Delta and American use this model.
The way the hub and spoke works, you have Denver as a hub, and then you'll have flights from, let's say, Lubbock, Albuquerque, Jackson Hole, and Las Vegas. These are the spokes. The spokes cities all fly into the hub. The passengers then change airplanes, and then those flights disperse to different cities across the country.
Here's what that looks like on a real-time map.
In Los Angeles and San Francisco.
What happened? Let's stop. Okay. Did you just stop? Okay. Try share nothing.
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words,
United and other legacy airlines like
You'll have flights from, let's say, Lubbock, Albuquerque, Jackson Hole, and Las Vegas. These are the spokes. The spokes cities all fly into the hub. The passengers then change airplanes, and then those flights disperse to different cities across the country.
Here's what that looks like on a real-time map.
In Los Angeles and San Francisco, you can see traffic going out to Hawaii, traffic intra-California, and then traffic coming up across the upper Northeast.
Here's what that looks like on an aircraft schedule.
And the color depicts the hub. Aircraft number 6, for example, it's flying from Korea, and every time it's in red, it's coming back to San Francisco.
The spokes are designed to feed travelers into the hub around the same time, to make connections easier and more efficient. But this also creates periods of very high and very low volume in the hub.
You'll look throughout the day, and it'll go peak, trough, peak, trough, peak, trough. And that drives cost because you have a lot of activity and you have no activity.
Hub and spoke is a more expensive model, which is why legacy airlines are the ones who typically use it. Low-cost carriers, by definition, try to keep costs low.
In order to support the hub, you need a couple different things. One, you need the assets, which is the gates, the clubs, the lounges, the terminal space. The second, you obviously need the employees.
Another reason hub and spoke is designed this way is to feed travelers into larger aircraft for long-haul flights.
We'll have aircraft like this 737 flying into our hub, connecting to this large 350-seat aircraft that's going to fly to a place like Frankfurt or Johannesburg.
Quayle says that by connecting in a hub, travelers have more options when it comes to destinations, flight times, and rebooking in case a flight gets canceled.
Often, many hub-spoke carriers have service to multiple hubs, and so if there's a weather incident in a major hub, we could fly you over a different hub. And then once you get to that city, you can be reaccommodated on the network out of that hub.
If there's an issue with the aircraft, hubs also typically have maintenance bases.
We can simply tow it to the hangar and tow a different aircraft up to continue the flight on.
To pay for all this infrastructure, Quayle says legacy carriers charge a higher ticket price.
Meaning a better product, better experience, and hoping people will pay more for that product.
Most low-cost airlines like Southwest, Spirit, and Frontier use a point-to-point system which works like this.
You would fly from San Antonio to Amarillo. In Amarillo, that aircraft might turn and go to Kansas City, and from Kansas City, it might go to St. Louis, and then down to Jacksonville.
Southwest says one benefit of this model is that because planes don't have to connect through a major hub, the airline can offer more nonstop flight options.
If you live in a smaller community, take San Antonio, for example, there's a low-cost airline there that has 20 different cities they serve out of San Antonio. Whereas if you're flying a legacy carrier, you're going to need to connect in a place like Houston, Dallas, or Atlanta.
Though point-to-point carriers don't have official hubs, they do have larger locations that facilitate many of their connections. They usually have one fleet type, which simplifies their operation.
They only have to have one crew and one maintenance team providing service to the exact same aircraft. The downside to this, though, they're only able to serve mid-size and large cities, and they can't fly transoceanic.
Quayle says one of the challenges with a point-to-point model is the ripple effect if something goes wrong.
If you're flying from San Antonio to Amarillo and then from Amarillo to Kansas City, if the airplane has a problem in Amarillo, it's going to then impact the passengers going to Kansas City and those passengers getting on the plane in Kansas City who want to fly to St. Louis and then go beyond.
Southwest says if a flight is facing a lengthy delay or is canceled between cities, the airline will bring in another aircraft or reroute travelers to minimize disruptions. But some industry experts say the point-to-point model may be one reason Southwest struggled to recover from severe winter storms last December, leading it to cancel over 16,700 flights. Southwest has held that the model wasn't to blame. According to Southwest, a point-to-point model brings in more redundancy during weather challenges, allowing the airline to get travelers home as quickly as possible through other routings. All airlines update their route networks throughout the year. These are the factors Quayle looks for when deciding whether or not to add a new route.
What's the nonstop demand? So how many people are in the major city going to the other city? How much support is coming in from all the different spokes into that hub, which provide feed to that new flight that we'd be adding?
If no other airline flies to that destination, that's another reason to add that route. But Quayle says he also adds service to places with a lot of competition.
In London Heathrow, for example, we've increased service from New York to London Heathrow to create more time channels throughout the day for a consumer to go between New York and London.
Partnerships with other airlines also play a role in choosing where to fly.
The reason we have as many flights as we have into Frankfurt and Munich is for their ability to connect onto Lufthansa to go into Eastern Europe and North Africa.
To add a route, Quayle says airlines have to go through a government regulatory process, which prevents other carriers from piggybacking off their idea. And the process can take anywhere from a couple months to a couple years.
I hope people appreciate the complexity and all the planning and work that goes in behind the scenes so that when they show up at the airport, they can get on a flight to go from point A to point B and have it operate seamlessly. The funniest misconception people have about me when they hear network planning is they think that I work in IT.
All right, so you will study more about airlines and you study the Southwest case, and do watch videos on boarding the plane. What is the best method to board a plane? Well, basically, what is the fastest method to board a plane? You will find many interesting videos on the internet, and I would recommend watch one or two. So the article talks about opening new positions. It says that always look out for opening new positions or new positions opening up in the market, and not be rigid in your strategy, right? So what does it mean by opening new positions? So like Blockbuster paid way to Netflix, basically OTT platform. The previous camera companies have paid way to mobile phones, floppy, CD, DVDs, USB drive, and now we have come to cloud storage. So there's always new positions opening up, some structural changes happening in the industry or market, right? And one of the biggest advantages with incumbents is that they do not have any baggage of silos or a particular way of thinking, monochromatic way of thinking. So that is why they are able to adopt and adapt both faster to the structural changes. And that is why you see how Blockbuster went out of business, or Kodak and Canon and these big camera firms have not been able to catch up with the market as quickly as they should have, because they were not able to adopt and adapt to the new positions, right? So there's an example from my own life. When I was in my undergrad, so my undergrad was in civil engineering. So in the very first semester, we had to present. There was a final end-term presentation in environmental engineering class, and I gave a presentation on how if we install these small windmills on not over on train coaches, that would help harness wind when the train moves. I don't know, it could be a very crazy idea, because that is why transportation and civil engineers have not yet adopted this idea. But that is what I gave my presentation on, which is like opening a new position up in the market, right? Or like solar cells on car roofs, right? Those kind of things. So this new position opening up is related to something called unemployment. So there's a general perception that there should be no unemployment. Unemployment should be zero, right? That's an intuitive perception, but actually it should not be zero. I'll tell you how. So there are three types of unemployment. One is cyclical unemployment, which is the normal definition of unemployment. When we hear unemployment, the first image that comes to our mind is cyclical unemployment, that economy is not working well GDP growth rate is slow. There is kind of recession. Workers are being laid off. So that is why there is unemployment. So that is our regular unemployment, right? This should be zero. This should not happen, right? But what about someone who is like an economics professor and at the age of say 45, he or she decides to pursue his hobby and enter music industry. So he gives up his job and now he's finding try to find a job or find something in the music industry. It will take him some months, maybe a year, maybe more than a year. So he would be unemployed for a certain period of time, and that would be frictional unemployment, right? This could not, I mean, if this is not zero, then it's okay. Somebody is pursuing his or her hobby, his passion, right? So even if this is not zero, that's okay. And this is the structural unemployment that Michael Porter is talking about. That some people got unemployed because of structural change in the industry. What is the structural change? That they used to make DVDs, or they used to make VCRs, but now the world moved to CDs and DVDs from VCRs, so they were laid off. But these people will most likely again find job in a few months as soon as they update their skill to, or the upskill themselves to how to make DVDs. If they learn how to make DVDs, then they will surely find a job again in making DVDs. Like if somebody was working on C, C++, or Java and got laid off because world has started using Python or R, and as soon as the person learns Python and R, then that person will again find a job, right? You just need to upskill himself, right? So that is structural unemployment, and that is what we are talking about in the article. Then there is another term in the article called corporate overhead, and we might be familiar with the term already. But corporate overhead is basically your expenses which you would incur regardless of whether you are producing anything or not. So whether your factory is working or not working, you would still have to pay rent, utilities, insurance, salaries for employees, salaries for HR, security guard. Even if the workers are on a strike and they are not producing anything in the factory, you would still have to pay certain salaries like security guard, HR, and all, accounting, marketing. You have already paid money to YouTube for the advertisement, whether you produce anything or not. You already paid the money for marketing, right? Or a newspaper or something. So these are corporate overhead, which are different from operating expenses, where operating expenses would be incurred only when you are producing the product. That would include your worker salaries, depreciation, and delivery charges like transportation, right? So that is the difference between the two. Now the article talks about three types of positioning. Do you remember three types of positioning? Do you remember the examples? Or the definition? How Porter defined three types of positioning? Anybody? Any example, not necessarily be, uh, you know, exactly that you remember what was access-based positioning example, what was needs-based positioning example, but any example you remember from the positioning part, or what he actually talked about. Yes?
I think he mentioned about IKEA, right? About the
Yes,
needs-based positioning. And I think it's like a firm that serves the most or all needs of a specific customer group, designing its activities to meet those needs better than like rivals.
exactly correct. Yes, yes. So Yaokun gave example of needs-based positioning, which was IKEA. Uh, Basically was that uh, a firm is catering to or taking care of needs of all the kinds of uh, customers in a particular segment, in a particular industry, right? So that was needs based positioning. Anybody remembers access based positioning or variety based positioning?
For access based, um,
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure the example that they used in the text was the movie theater. I think it was called Carmike. That
Hmm.
they're able to um, position themselves for the smaller cities and like a more like rural audiences.
Right.
So they can cut costs by, making specific deals, finding lower cost real estate because they're in those specific areas and sort of gain their edge on the competition on the bigger city theaters by serving this particular subgroup of um, the industry, which is like in the more rural towns rather than in big cities with other competitive theaters.
Right. Exactly. Uh, so yeah, access based positioning example, as he said, was Carmike theaters, which are in generally. So I've lived in upstate New York in a very small town, or not even town. It was like a village, 4,000 population. So there was just one theater in the village. That is the only place we could go to watch movies. So their competitor. So as the article mentions that their competitor would be like the local college game, a school game or college game. So there, whenever there used to be ice hockey games, that is the only competitor for the movie theater in those regions, right? And they don't need many employees. Just one manager can manage the whole hall, right? Whole theater, and they don't even need to spend money on marketing much because most of the marketing happens by word of mouth, or the manager has, because it's a small place, small village, so a lot of people. It's a very cohesive, tight knit society. So you would post in the local Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups, whatever. Facebook is more popular in US than WhatsApp, so probably Facebook groups, and that is how the marketing will happen. So it's a very deliberate trade-off, right? That's what the article talks about, right? Deliberate trade-off. And then variety-based positioning was like when you would anybody remembers variety-based positioning example?
Um,
Um,
Variety-based positioning was when you only offer like a certain type of product or service, and I think the company was Jiffy Lube. They did oil changes and like some
Yeah.
maintenances, but it wasn't like a full repair shop.
Yes. Correct. Exactly. Refill you. Only targeting a small niche segment, uh, automobile oil, and deliberately keeping it to limited to that. And but they were superiors in that. So even if somebody wants to get servicing done for their car, they would still get rest of the servicing done at one place, but uh, solely for lubricant, they would go to Jiffy Lubes, right? So that was the example. And there are of course risks attached, that what if someday the rest of the industry starts taking interest in producing better lubricant. Or what if someday customers start thinking that, oh, since we are getting the whole servicing done at one servicing center, why not use the lubricant here and not go for Jiffy Lube separately? So there is risk attached with that, but it's still a deliberate or intentional trade-off, right? That they have created, like positioning that they have created. And so what is the importance of trade-offs? So he stresses trade-offs a lot in the article. What is the advantage of trade-offs? That, you protect your company from imitators like Neutrogena. What was Neutrogena doing? What was Neutrogena doing deliberately? What is the strategy of Neutrogena?
They chose to be like a better skincare brand instead of like going with the beauty and the high-end fashion trends.
Yes, and they market themselves through dermatologists, right? High-end hotels, they sell themselves as doctor prescribed soap, right? They could have gone for a very good smell soap, but they want to keep it that, we have to choose a trade-off. So one option we have is good smell, other is scientific soap. So they chose scientific soap over good smell thing, right? And they deliberately market themselves in high-end hotels, which allow them to use their own, you know, covering or wrapper rather than the hotel's wrapper, right? Or, for example, Apple deliberately chooses not to sell cheap phones, only targets middle class and upper class segment of the society. That's also trade-off, right? Then he talks about fit, that all our activities should align with each other, with our objective, with our strategy. They should be reinforcing. Like Gap. Gap is um, aligned on lean supply chain. So they, instead of filling their or restocking their stores, they instead restock their warehouse, and that is how they achieve quick turnover in their stores, faster, more better turnovers than their competitors. They're able to restock their stores 7 or 8 times a year, when their competitors can restock only 3 or 4 times. So those kind of alignment should be there in your strategies. Then he also talks about, uh, I mean, these are all operational efficiency things, not exactly strategy things or positioning things, but he talks about product design choices, like how you can improve your after sales service by improving your design, or allowing the customers to DIY. He talks about two things here. That one, that position yourself such that rather than being a second or third imitator, you are the first one, and improve your after sales service through DIY as well, like Patagonia does. Patagonia has a lot of DIY guides and repair stores where you can take your items, and if you have simple issues like zippers, rips, and all, you can repair them for free rather than buying a new item, which is very unique because I'll bring up this example again in the CSR, last chapter, which is unique because firms would want you to discard your product and buy new products as quickly as possible, right? But Patagonia instead encourages you to reuse and repair rather than discarding the products, which is a very climate friendly policy. Then he summarizes uh, the differences between the previous strategy and the strategy he's proposing. So he's saying that operational effectiveness is a given. You don't necessarily have to focus on operational effectiveness all the time because that is obvious that you have to focus on it. But you have to focus on clear trade offs and choices, unique positioning, and fit. All the activities should be tailored to strategy and should align with each other. That is the, like, these 3 or 4 points are like the takeaways from the article, right? Then he also says that choose the most productive activity. So there was a scholar, David Ricardo. Oh, by the way, before that, so he also brings up a term called multi-point competition. Multi-point competition or multi-market competition both mean the same thing, which basically means that two firms are competing against each other in multiple segments, or that segment could be product segment or geographic segment. So say Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Coca-Cola and Pepsi are competing against each other not just in US but also in Brazil, in China, in India, in Philippines, in Nigeria, right? And they are not just competing against each other in soda or soft drink, but also if Pepsi launches, say, a chips new, then Coca-Cola feels the pressure that it should also launch a chip. If Pepsi tomorrow decides to launch a muffin or donut, then Coca-Cola would feel the urge to launch a muffin or donut. So they are competing against each other in multiple product segments as well as multiple geographic segments, and that is called multi or multi-point competition or multi-market competition. Okay. So this scholar, David Ricardo, he said that you should specialize in uh, the goods that you produce most efficiently. So he gave a theory called theory of comparative advantage, which said that do the activity that gives you the maximum profit. So suppose I am good at teaching as well as lawn mowing. Okay, so I can do one of the best lawn mowing in the world, and I can also teach one of the best in the world. But now I have to decide between the two activities which one I should pick because I have limited attention, limited scope, energy, time. So I should pick the one that gives me the most profit or the highest earning. So if I get paid $20 an hour for lawn mowing, but if I get paid $50 an hour for teaching, then I should pick teaching, even though I like lawn mowing a lot. Okay. So you remember the profit pool from the previous chapter? It gave like which of the activities in a particular industry will give you more profit, right? So, and some other activities would occupy a bigger chunk in the activities, but they would probably give you lesser profits. So, what happens with these companies is that basically how it all connects to what Michael Porter is saying, that companies consistently try to uh, keep diversifying in products, like keep launching products that, oh, we have a pressure that, oh, if Apple is launching an iPhone every year, and if I am Samsung or Motorola, then I will feel the pinch that I should also come up with a new model every year. S25, then S26 should also come within a year. S27 should also come within a year, even if I am not able to offer anything new. But I have the pressure to consistently launch new products or diversify in areas that I'm not expert in, because that would give me more sales. See, if I launch more products, if I diversify in more areas, that would give me more sales. But more sales does not always mean more profits. Do you get the point? What I'm trying to say? If your attention is getting divided into so many products, so many segments, and you are not the best in some of those segments, rather than being in those segments, you should divest and focus on only on the segments that give you the maximum profits. They do not see it as so diversifying in multiple products or multiple segments gives you a dip in profits but increase in revenues, so they are happy, but it gives you lower ROI, return on investment, right? So they do that because they feel pressure from competitors, right? So think this way: they always have a pressure to add product lines. Like, for example, what Meta did, it introduced threads. Why did it introduce threads? Why did Meta introduce threads?
To compete with X or Twitter.
Right, but do you use threads? Is it successful? Is it popular?
No.
No, right? So that is the point I'm trying to make. Choose the most productive activity. They are spending money and energy on running threads, but it's not giving them any good returns. Instagram, so Instagram introduced Reels, and I remember the exact moment when Instagram introduced Reels. So when and why did Instagram introduce Reels? So it was COVID 2020, and I was in India at that time, and India banned TikTok. Okay, that in 2020, I was in India. And I went to sleep. I woke up, and within 12 hours, Instagram had introduced Reels. So you see, they introduced Reels because India banned TikTok, and Reels are actually very successful, right? Reels are successful. Stories is also successful, which they copied from Snapchat. But not every product line is successful. Threads is not successful. Tesla tried to integrate backward. Elon was not happy with the car seats, but it did not work. It only pushed back the rollout of new models by several months due to delays. So it did not work. So basically, the point that Michael Porter is trying to say is that do not launch new product lines or new features just in imitation or just because you are feeling the pressure to be present in the segment in which your competitor is present. And when you have confusion in those times that what should I do, what should I not do, which fields should I diversify in, which I should not diversify in, always visit your history. Go back to your vision and mission statements and founders, that why did they start the firm? Why did they start the business in the first place? What was the objective? Right? So a race to the bottom I've already covered, so I'll not go over it again. Which fields should you diversify in? So like Apple can diversify in AI or metaverse. Have you heard metaverse? Do you know what it is?
It's like a virtual reality kind of stuff, right?
Right. Yes. Virtual world. Yes. So Meta has been spending a lot on metaverse since 5 or 6 years, but still they have not been very successful. Uh, but Apple should not venture into car. Do you think so? Should Apple make cars?
I would say no. I mean, it's a phone company. I don't know exactly if I trust a phone company to keep me safe in a vehicle.
Hmm. But do you know Apple was actually making a car for like almost 10 years and they burned like more than 1 billion per year. They laid off 600 employees. They were trying to make an electric self-driving car, right? But it's not always that you should not diversify in non-related fields. Uh, Actually, in non-Western world, in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, you would actually find a lot of firms, a lot of conglomerates who are in extremely unrelated fields. Uh, Samsung? What is the product of Samsung? What does Samsung make?
Phones.
Phones? Anything else?
TV.
Okay.
General appliances, so like fridges and washing machines.
Right. Right. Electronic items, basically, all you were saying is right. So it's a conglomerate or business group, right? But see what Samsung does. Samsung Biologics, Samsung Asset Management, Samsung Construction and Trading Corporation, Samsung Electronics, of course, is the one that we know. Samsung Engineering, Samsung Fire and Marine Insurance, Samsung Heavy Industries, Samsung Life Insurance, so on and so forth. Give me exact number, dude. I think they're present in like more than 26 industries, if I remember correctly. Okay. So basically, uh, these are called chaebols. In South Korea, they are called chaebols. In Japan, they are called kiritsu. In Latin America, they are called grupos. India, they don't have any specific name, but they're all. So we teach a case, like I teach a case, Tata, House of Tata. not in winter semester, but in spring and fall semester. So Tata makes everything. It's an Indian conglomerate, Indian business group, and makes everything from a needle to airlines, FMCG, IT, motor, automobiles, chemicals, like literally everything that you can imagine it makes. And that is true for these Korean firms, Japanese firms, Latin American firms, African firms. They are less present in Western countries. It's not that they're not present. There are many conglomerates in Europe and North America as well, but they are more present in developing nations, and there is a reason for that. Why they are more present in developing nations? Historical reason. So what happened was that when these nations um, started getting independence in 1940s, 50s, and 60s. So if you would see most of the Asian, African, and South American nations, they got independence in 40s, 50s, and 60s after the Second World War, right? Because Europe was battered by the two world wars. They were not able to sustain the colonies, and they wanted peace. So they one by one they exited these countries. And what happened after that was world was divided into two factions. What were those two factions after the World War II? Capitalism and communism, right? Either you align with the Soviet Union or you align with US, right? And a lot of these developing nations chose communism or socialism at that time because of their history, because uh, they had been colonized for 200, 300 years. And um like, for example, how did Britishers come to India? They entered, they first set foot in India as East India Company. They came as businessmen, right? And then they slowly gained political power and they started ruling the nation, right? So most of these uh, colonizers, most of these European nations, they came as business companies, and then they exploited these nations for 200, 300, 400 years. So there was a lot of distrust in these nations towards businessmen, a lot of anti-business sentiment, pent up, anger. So that is why most of these nations adopted communism. It's a different story that communism did not give them prosperity. Communism, in most cases, gave them dictators, right? So these countries were not able to prosper due to communist and socialist policies for the next 30, 40 years or 50 years. And slowly, one by one, most of these nations switched to capitalism, free market. Like China switched to capitalism in 1978 during Deng Xiaoping. Then India opened its markets in 1991, called LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms. And the same way, most of the other nations, which at one point of time were communist or socialist, opened up to Western companies. They allowed international trade. They allowed private companies to prosper. And that is how they have been having good growth since the last 20, 30, or 40 years, depending on the nation. Like, it varies from nation to nation, right? But how do these conglomerates or business group fit into this story? So what happened when these countries gained independence and they decided that they would not allow private players to be in the market, or international firms to be in the market. But still, most of these countries already had some private players, some big business families, or big business firms already. And despite being communist or socialist on papers, most of the top politicians were bought by these businessmen, and they were in their pockets. So there were public firms, of course, like in India, banks were most of the banks were nationalized. Air India, which was run by Tata at that time in 1940s and 50s, they nationalized it to, they made it a public company, and then Tata gained it back just 2 years ago. He took it back from government. He got the ownership again. So most of the firms were nationalized, but still there was presence of some private players, and they made sure by bribing the politicians that their firms are never taken over by the government. And because these institutional framework in these countries was very poor. Institutional structure or institutional framework means that if you want to take loan from bank to undertake an activity, say if I am Tata Constructions or Samsung Constructions and I want to build a dam or highway, I would need like 6 months approval to take the loan. And then I cannot take loan more than say $2 million or $5 million, because there is a cap. Government does not allow banks to give more than a certain amount of loan to private players, right? And then I cannot take that money outside India or outside Korea, because there is restriction on taking capital outside the country. If I have to undertake a project, if I have won a tender in say Ghana or Nigeria to build a dam or a highway. So there were too many restrictions, too much paperwork, too much red tapeism, bureaucratic hurdles. So I could not have capital, neither human capital nor like money capital, those kind of things. So institutional framework or institutional structure was very poor in these countries. That is why what these firms did, that rather than being dependent on the institutions of the country, they decided to form their own institutions. So if I am Tata and I am running an airline, and I know that if I have to, undertake a new project, say if I have to buy a new aircraft or build a small airport somewhere, but I would not get support from government, neither from banks nor from government in any form. So why not open Tata Motors that would make uh, automobiles, and then whenever I need money, I can borrow money from Tata Motors. Whenever I need good managers, I can just move some managers from Tata Motors to my airline. And similarly, I can do that for my FMCG business. Similarly, I can do that for my chemicals business. So they started diversifying in unrelated areas, unrelated sectors, just to circumvent the government structure, institutional structure. So they started using their other arms or other businesses as banks, recruitment agencies, and basically institutions. So that is why in all these countries, you would find that these conglomerates have very diverse interests, very diverse businesses, and they are very successful. So even though these countries opened up in 70s, 80s, and 90s, many of these conglomerates or business groups, they did not divest. And most of these conglomerates are family owned. They are run by families. Like Samsung, I think, is run by Kim family. Tata is also a family business. Most of the top CEOs of its firms are from the family and run by families and friends. same way in Japan. And that is why loyalty matters a lot. You remember in the video, that person said that even today in Japan, you would find people working for the same firm for the whole life, right from joining at the age of 20 or 22 till the retirement at 60, 65. They would be working for the same firm because these firms are run like families. Loyalty matters a lot. Your loyalty is rewarded a lot. When you reach a higher position at 40, 45 years of age, they would give you unthinkable amount of, salary or income. Your CTC would be very high, and they would give you very important projects, and they would the like these firms run a lot on trust. Trust factor is very. I have seen myself, like in some of my friends who are working for Tata. They haven't switched. They haven't changed their company in 15 years. Like they are working for the same firm since undergrad, and they have no plans to leave the company because they like the environment. The environment is very positive there. Like they treat you like family. So that is the story of conglomerates or business groups in these nations. Right. So in their case, diversifying in unrelated businesses have worked, but that is because of historic reasons. But in general, otherwise, it's recommended that you should not diversify in unrelated businesses. So if you are an Apple, uh, you can diversify in AI or metaverse, but do not diversify in car. That would be a general recommendation. And leadership is very important, which is stressed by Michael Porter also. Uh, the best example is Southwest Airlines, as you would read in the next few days, how Southwest leadership has shaped its trajectory. Or say, Tesla and Twitter are identified with Elon Musk. They carry Elon's image, and so does Apple, which is loved by many people because of Steve Jobs. So, leadership also defines your strategy and product. Then, of course, innovation is stressed, uh, but do not do innovation just for the sake of innovation. That, oh, I have to come up with something new. I have some crazy idea, so let us implement it, regardless of giving a thought that whether it would work or not. So, like for example, this split screen feature. I have a phone that has this feature. I guess iPhones also have this feature. I'm not sure, but I have never seen anybody using this feature. Like I don't know whether this feature is popular. I don't think it's very popular. Like, do you guys use split screen feature in your phone? No, right? So yeah, so it's an innovation for sure, but it's not that successful. It's not that popular. My phone also has a ride mode. I have a Huawei phone by the way. It's banned. Huawei was banned in 2020, I guess. But my phone is 7 years old. I bought it 2019 before Huawei was banned in US. So it has a ride mode, which can take up your calls and all when you are riding. But I don't think anybody uses this feature. Not very popular. So yeah, basically he says that do not innovate just for the sake of innovation. Give a thought uh, that whether your innovation and the money and time you're investing in would be successful or not, would give you returns or not. So this was the whole article. I hope you liked it. I know articles are long, cases are long, but just treat them like story. I mean, cases, you can treat cases like stories, then they'll be fun. They're good to read. You don't have to remember every single fact, but if you get the gist of the case, that itself would be great. Okay, so we have holiday tomorrow. Have a Merry Christmas, and we meet day after tomorrow. If you have any questions, free to stay. Otherwise, see you guys on Friday.